Lane Treadgold is the secretary at Football Supporters Association Australia. He joins us now. Really nice to have you here.
Leo, thanks for the opportunity.
So really exciting A-League men's grand final over the weekend. Huge crowd at Amy Park in Melbourne. Before we get on to some of the other stuff regarding media and coverage, police around that, must have been great for you to see such a huge crowd. Obviously, it was a derby. It was always going to be a big crowd, but I mean that was just massive. And being there myself, I know the atmosphere was incredible.
Leo, it was a showpiece event. The APL, obviously, who run the A-League, probably couldn't ask for a better showcase. It was one of the biggest fixtures that you're likely to ever see. Melbourne City taking on Melbourne Victory. Biggest ever crowd recorded at Amy Park. And, the majority of them went and had a really great time. So, yeah.
The talk about police outside the ground and at some level, of course, inside the ground, has been really prominent here. Seeing a lot of the videos in the hours leading up to it, I mean, the presence was undeniably massive, especially when it was kind of compared to the actual amount of supporters who were out there. It was on Swan Street in Melbourne. I know I had a friend who was down there, and again, it was even by kind of the standards that have been seen before, it was pretty extraordinary. What did you make of those scenes, and were you surprised?
Well, I was watching from afar and I was getting sent pictures saying, have a look at this. Just have a look at how many police are down in the street in Swan Street. And my initial reaction was, that is way over the top. However, we sat and we kind of just observed from afar. But then they just kept coming and coming and coming, and more people were getting in contact with us saying, look, have a look at this. We're not feeling too great about things here. And then, of course, the scenes came of police dressed in riot gear and assorted firearms were on display. And for a few of our members, they started to feel quite intimidated, Leo. So it wasn't a great place to be on what should have been such a festive occasion.
I know that, and police put out a statement a few hours ago. They've condemned some instances of violence which have been reported. I know in the Football Supporters Association statement that was also condemned unequivocally. Why do you think, though, that it just keeps happening in terms of the huge police presence for these kind of events? And I mean, really huge. We again see it inside the stadiums as well. We see it with security as well. I think about 10 minutes before full time, the amount of security that just came out we're having a bit of a laugh just seeing them all pour out for supporters who, I mean, no one tried to jump the pitch jump the fence, I should say. Why do you think it keeps happening at the A-League and at football generally? You've been following the game a lot longer than I have. Why is this the case?
Leo, that's a question for the police and the authorities. But I think the point that we need to get to is we need to get everyone in the room and work out which angle everyone is coming from. Now, I'm sure and we're sure that these discussions happen between the authorities and the clubs, the authorities and Football Australia and the APL. However, there's a key factor that's not included in a lot of these conversations, and that is the fans. So that's something that we're trying to change here at the Football Supporters Association.
I know also in the statement released this morning, you called on, and I'll quote here, relevant media organisations to curb the hyperbole, sensationalism and misleading nature of their football coverage. You also noted outlets focusing on isolated incidents, a kind of hooligan narrative. Talk to us a bit more about that and your thoughts on what we saw, especially in the lead up to kick-off on Saturday, and also what we saw on Sunday's 6 p.m. bulletins as well.
Leo, there's been a long historical context to this in the way that football has been portrayed over many decades here in Australia. And unfortunately, we're yet to kind of lose those habits. We can go back a week and reference an incident that happened at an AFL game with Hawthorn Football Club. Now, that might have been an isolated incident as well, and it was treated as such. But when we have isolated incidences at the A-League or in the round ball code, the language used in many different media outlets is very different. And that's also something that we're trying to change. Is we know that, like any other crowd, we are likely to get a couple or a few people that are likely to test the boundaries and possibly cross the line. It's no different in the AFL, it's no different in the NRL, but we want those incidents to be reported in the same manner.
So how do we, I know you're advocating for it, just there exactly. How does this kind of push happen though? Because again, it is you've just mentioned it has been going back some time, some of the narratives that have existed. Is some of it just on fans to behave themselves a bit more to kind of put the opposite perspective there?
There's a look. There's when we start talking about that and opening a conversation like that, the fans need to behave themselves. There's already, I guess, an insinuation that they're not going to behave themselves. So that's part of the attitude that we have to kind of quell and say, look, everyone goes and have a good time. Nobody wants to go down there and had plans to get into trouble, but it happens. People do get a little bit over the top. People get a bit excited. Maybe there's a bit of alcohol involved and people cross the line. We know that that's human nature. But as going back to my original point, we want these incidences to be reported on in the same manner as they would an incident at the racecourse, at the AFL grounds or at the NRL grounds.
Just finally, and circling back to what we started with, I mean, look, we saw the huge crowds. We know that it's a big year coming up in the round ball game. We've got the second tier launching, of course. There's a lot of excitement being generated, and you'd be hoping that a Derby grand final kind of energizes the next A-League season as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time. It's a little bit of a daunting time for football fans because there's a lot of exciting things on the cards, but we haven't had it easy for a while now, football fans. It's been a little bit of a long whine to try and get out of the COVID years and everything like that. There's been some change at Football Australia. There's been some change at the APL, and there's obviously, yeah, it's been widely reported that there's a few A-League clubs that are struggling, but there's some blue skies on the horizon as well as far as some of the young talent that we're producing here in Australia. So it's not all doom and gloom, and I think football fans have a lot to be optimistic about.
We'll keep covering it closely. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Leo.